So it's agreed. A, for as long as this presidential campaign remains focused on the American economy and what remains of our financial system, Barack Obama has inherent political advantage over John McCain. And it is also agreed, B, that when the campaign turns back to judgment on foreign policy, momentum will trend back from Obama toward McCain. I'm fairly certain on A. But given yet another apparent big new John McCain misstep on foreign policy, B is an increasingly dubious assumption. First, today's politics about the economy. Politics that continue to benefit Obama. Having fecklessly suggested a blue ribbon commission to study the economy 2 days ago, Senator McCain took a far more aggressive tack today.
The chairman of the SEC serves at the appointment of the president and, in my view, has betrayed the public trust. If I were president today, I would fire him.
Fire him? That sounds much stronger than a blue ribbon commission. One problem? A president can't actually fire the SEC chairman because heads of independent regulatory commissions can't be removed by a president. That's the whole independent thing. Even forgiving Senator McCain's factual error there, his thrust on the fire the SEC chairman idea allowed Barack Obama to parry and then some.
Don't just get rid of one guy. Get rid of this administration. Get rid of this philosophy. Get rid of the do-nothing approach to our economic problems and put somebody in there who's going to fight for you.
As of yet, the economy is not turning out to be John McCain's issue in this campaign. McCain has telegraphed for months, for years, that he knows that the economy isn't his strong suit. And his vice presidential pick bragged when she was running for governor that she only got a D in macroeconomics when she took it in college. But McCain and his campaign have taken comfort in their belief that McCain's lack of facility with the economy is more than made up for by his good judgment on foreign policy, right? And that brings us to the issue of Spain. Spain? Spain. Who knew we'd be talking about Spain at this point in the presidential race? But boy, howdy, are we. In an interview with a Florida radio station this week, John McCain was asked whether he would meet with the Spanish Prime Minister, Zapatero, a leader who has been at odds with the Bush administration because he took Spanish troops out of Iraq after he got elected. McCain seemed confused about who the interview was asking him about.
If you're elected president, would you be willing to invite President José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero to the White House to meet with you?
I would be willing to meet with those leaders who are friends and want to work with us in a cooperative fashion.
So you have to wait and see if he's willing to meet with you, or you be able to do it in the White House?
Well, again, I don't. All I can tell you is that I have a clear record of working with leaders in the hemisphere that are friends with us and standing up to those who are not, and that's judged on the basis of the importance of our relationship with Latin America and the entire region.
The entire region? Latin America? The hemisphere? So what happened there is that Senator McCain was either confused by the question or he wasn't sure who Prime Minister Zapatero of Spain is. In either case, McCain pretty clearly put Spain in Latin America, not in Europe. Still, things didn't get truly troubling about this until the McCain campaign tried to explain their candidate's apparent stumble with an aggressive statement which said that he knew exactly what he was talking about. That explanation included this, quote, Senator McCain did not rule in or rule out a White House meeting with President Zapatero. And also, quote, he is not going to make reckless promises to meet America's adversaries. So in John McCain's foreign policy judgment, Spain is possibly an adversary who we can't promise McCain would meet with? Spain? The democracy? With the troops in Afghanistan and the big economy, the big cornerstone of Europe? Add this head-scratcher to a growing litany of them from the foreign policy judgment guy in this race. In this campaign, McCain has said that Iraq and Pakistan share a border. He has repeatedly said that Czechoslovakia still exists. It doesn't. He was confused about the difference between Sudan and Somalia. He was confused about whether it's more NATO troops or more U.S. troops that he wants to send to Afghanistan. He was confused about what U.S. troop levels are in Iraq. He was confused about Iran's relationship with al-Qaeda. He was confused about the difference between Sunni and Shiite Muslims. Remember Joe Lieberman having to whisper the correction into his ear? And then there was that awkward reference to President Putin of Germany, but we don't need to go into that. Add the foreign policy gaffes to the aggressive stance toward bombing Iran, his running mate's assertion that perhaps we do need a war against Russia, and now they're drawing a line in the sand against Spain? Joining us now is Democratic Senator Jim Webb of Virginia. He is supporting Senator Barack Obama's presidential bid. Senator Webb, thank you very much for joining us today.
Nice to be with you on the show.
Initially, it was thought that Senator McCain did not understand the question or that he forgot who the Spanish prime minister was. Now his campaign insists that Senator McCain intentionally will not commit to meeting with Spain, one of our NATO allies. What do you make of this?
It could be a gaffe on the part of his campaign. Actually, I really don't want to judge how that exchange went without letting it play out a little bit. I think the problem that we all should be focusing on is the one that the decision that he made with a great deal of clarity of thought, and that is the person that he picked to run as his vice presidential nominee, and as asking the entire country to take an enormous leap of faith here in terms of what the qualifications of that person would be in areas like foreign policy.
Republican Senator Chuck Hagel, one of your colleagues, today made news by making some very pointed comments about the vice presidential nominee, Sarah Palin. He said specifically, quote, "She does not have any foreign policy credentials." Is it a big deal for a Republican senator to make an assessment like that? Do you share that assessment?
I've been friends with Chuck Hagel for 30 years. He and I came up together as Vietnam veterans, started working on the Hill in the late 1970s. He is a tremendously respected senator by both parties. He's on the Foreign Relations Committee, and he has a long-time friendship with John McCain. So I think that if people look at Chuck Hagel's background, they have something pretty concrete to weigh that comment against. And I happen to agree with him as someone who has spent a lot of my life working on foreign policy and having sat for the last 2 years on the Armed Services Committee and the Foreign Relations Committee, that every American needs to think really hard, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, about the potential of Governor Palin stepping into the shoes of the presidency without these kinds of experiences. But the bottom line right now is we need steadfastness of purpose. We need leadership that we can gather around in a situation where we now are facing the worst crisis that this country has faced since the combination of the Great Depression and World War II. And we need some real reassurance here that we've got people at the helm who have the intellect and the vision to move the country forward, and I believe that person is Barack Obama. And if you examine his vice presidential nominee, the qualification and the experience that you see in Senator Biden is just what the country needs right now.
One last question for you on that issue of foreign policy, Senator Webb. And we have seen John McCain as early as literally the morning of September 11th, 2001, start to make the case for invading Iraq. His hawkishness toward Russia this year included him proclaiming we are all Georgians now. We've had this sort of inexplicable stance against Spain today that we still don't quite understand. We've heard him sing bomb, 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 bomb Iran to the tune of a Beach Boys song. His stance on foreign policy is, I would argue, perhaps even more hawkish than the Bush-Cheney administration has been, certainly more aggressive. Do you think that connects to his temperament, or do you think that these are intellectually held positions?
I think, in fairness, there are other people who could give you a judgment on that, but I will say this. The incidents that you mentioned and others do reflect judgment, and they reflect a view of where this country is as opposed to where it might have been in the 1950s or the 1960s. We can't pull out a military solution for every single problem that we face. And in terms of temperament, I will say this, and I've said it many times out speaking, that the attacks that Barack Obama has endured for the last 19 months and the way that he has responded certainly reflect positively on his temperament, and that is a sense of calm that I think you want when we're trying to sort out these solutions under great pressure.
Senator Jim Webb of Virginia, we do really thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Congratulations on your show.
Thank you.